This is an episode of The Mindful Runner, and today we're talking with Walter Moldenhauer, a man who recently, running 100 miles, stopped for almost 4 hours at the 60-kilometer mark. Most people thought his race was over, but Walter, in his normal fashion, rose from the dead and ran his best 100 in 4 races this year. So, Walter, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Walter, give me a little bit of background. Who is Walter?
Walter is a very weird guy. When I was at high school, I was set on becoming a professional cyclist. And running was never my thing. I never did any running when I was younger. It was all about cycling, and I dreamt about the Tour de France. Yeah, I got sick after school, so I couldn't continue with cycling. And then I studied, and sport wasn't sort of the major theme in my life. And after university, I got into rock climbing again. And I've always been an outdoors person. And in 2012, I got this idea of running. So I started running. I progressed very quickly through my first 10K, 21K marathon. And the next year I did my first comrades, which ended up in a disaster as my appendix burst at 68. So that was not the best of comrades for the first time. And I did the return the next year and finished my first comrades. And unfortunately, comrades and Walter, they're not friends. I've always had problems with comrades. And in 2017, I got to, where was it? Intabeni School, sorry. And I just sat next to the road. There was a couple of my ladies from my club there. I said to them, I'm just going to sleep for 20 minutes, I'll feel better and I'll run again. And that didn't happen. I woke up the Monday afternoon in ICU, not knowing where the hell I was, and a lot of monitors looking at me, and a sister looking at me and looking very worried. So my race was over, my running career was over. The doctors told me I'll never be able to run again. And I left it there. But during COVID, I decided, now let's try running again. And I started running again. I went back to the road, but I didn't like road running. So I did my first trail run, which was Dryland Traverse. That was my first introduction to trail, a 4-day stage race. I enjoyed it, and I thought, okay, maybe I should look at trail running. And I did a couple of other trail races, but it wasn't until I ran the old Discovery George Mutt when it was still the 65 Ks, and that was back in 2022. And I entered my first ultra. It was quite something. I suffered up the first hill, up Sputnik. And this young gentleman passed me flying up the hill. I remembered his number, bib 140. And after the race, I kept remembering the number. So I Googled the number and the results, and I saw this guy. And I Googled him, and he was this Myler Marius. And the results said he just won the Mac Ultra week prior. And that sort of tickled my enthusiasm, because I'm from the Lowveld. I'm from Nelspruit originally, and I always loved Sabi, Mac. And I grew up hiking the Finding Purpose and Prospectors hiking trails. And I always said, if somebody makes that a trail race, then I'll do that.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and I saw it's 100 miles. I said, hell no. I won't be able to run 100 miles given my comrades' history. I don't think that's going to work. So I entered, and life happened, and in 2023 I did my first 100-mile trail race, which was the Mac Ultra. And it didn't work out that well. I got retrenched just 4 weeks prior to the Mac, and that sort of downed my spirits a bit. But I suffered badly, but I returned and I finished my first 100-miler, and that's how I started. And then I then went into trail running, and I sort of got stuck on the 100-miler distance. Unfortunately, I'm not that much talented when it comes to running, so I have to work hard a lot at it. And I do get sick. It's one of the drawbacks. It's one of the things I always carry with me after my comrade stunt in 2017. And it is what it is, but I've gotten to live with it. And I think also trail running has taught me that it's okay to get sick. It's not the end of the world. In road running, you don't have the time to recover. Yeah. Normally, when it happens, your race is over. But in trail running, it's completely different. You do have the time. You do have the time to recover and be patient and just follow through. And I think if it had not been for the trail running, especially the 100-milers, I wouldn't have been able to survive the last 3 years, given what's happened with my work situation, etc., etc. So apart from just running, I think it's changed my entire life, because it taught me just to hang in there, and it too shall pass. And I've had a lot of those situations, and I've managed to do that.
Yeah.
And
that's what I want to dig into now, actually. What draws you to the 100-milers specifically? And what goes through your mind in those early hours of the morning? Are you being chased, or are you chasing something? Are you running away from your demons or chasing after your angels?
I don't know. I think I watched a lot of documentaries and about 100-milers and the why, and I've since become famous about my why stunts and etc., etc. But 100-miler talks to your soul. It changes you. When you run your first 100-miler, you're a different person afterwards. No matter who you are, what, it changes you. And especially, I prefer the lonely nighttime hours, that witching hour during 2, 3 in the morning. That's probably my most favorite part of the 100-miler, is when it's just miserable, it's dark, it's lonely, and 9 out of 10 times I don't feel all that good. But it sort of, it just pushes me on, and I just want to push through, and I sort of enjoy that. I can't describe why, but why again? But it is just, it teaches you so much about yourself, and it teaches you just to be patient and just hang in there, just persevere and get through this. And that's probably, I mean, a lot of these famous runners talk about the pain cave. It's probably the pain cave, but I think you almost enjoy that. It's sort of your time when you're just reflecting a lot about your life choices, and I just enjoy it.
Yeah, maybe a good illustration, and that leads me into my next question, is at Mac. Now, I was there when you stopped for a bit of a nap at 60 Ks in. You had a fairly long sleep. How do you know that you're going to be able to bounce back from those? Because you've had a few of those long sleeps on races and you still finish.
I think the first year, I think deep down inside, I'm a pretty stubborn person. So when I set my mind to something, I normally follow through. I've been like that since I was a little man. So I'm very stubborn when it comes to do. In some cases, I'm almost like that last, now I've forgotten the movie where Kevin Costner stars in them playing golf, and he's leading the tournament, but he wants to hit the hole in one at the last putt, and he ends up losing the game because he's so focused on just hitting the hole in one. In some cases, I can be like that, but I don't know. I know. The first race was pretty touch and go. It was normally when you're not feeling that well, you don't look that well, and people around you, they panic more than what you do, and they just sort of decide, okay, this guy cannot continue, but in the end he can. So yeah. I think through the milers that I've done now, I've grown. I've learned that I can do this, and I one just needs to be patient. It comes with self-confidence as well. I think that is the biggest thing. You need to believe in yourself that you can do that. And also one learns that through failure, having failed quite a lot of times in running. And I know that sometimes I just cannot do it, but I just follow through. And I think that's what made me a stronger person, especially a stronger runner, is to know that no matter how hard things are, you'll get through this. And this year's Mac was, I probably would have had my best Mac race ever. I was very well prepared and I was strong. Felt strong before the race, but unfortunately, I didn't sleep for more than a week before the race, and I got to the start severely sleep deprived. And I even ended up not even having my race number with me 5 minutes before the start, and I ended up packing that into the drop bag. So I was completely out of it even before the start of the race. But I just knew, it's sort of just sit back, relax, get some sleep in, or just let this pass and you'll feel better in the end. And I think you saw me at about 60K at Mount Sheba. I slept
That's
for an
right.
hour and then I went on to the next checkpoint. I sat there for about 20 minutes and then got to Mac Pools, slept for another hour, and then got back to Mac Hut and slept for almost 3 hours. So, and only after that, I started feeling better and got to the point when I got to stables. I was still a bit out of it and not feeling well, but walking up the hill to Mount Anderson, I started feeling better. I could feel that I'm becoming a person again and no longer a walking zombie. And
So it only took you 130 kilometers to get your sleep sorted out.
yeah, only 130 kilometers after about more than 4.5 hours of sleeping and a lot of dehydration because I couldn't keep any food down. And I started keeping food down again, especially liquids. And when I got to Mount Anderson checkpoint, I decided, okay, now I probably should start running. And I was able to run and finish. So, but I think it comes with experience. I think had it been my first 100-miler, that would probably not have panned out that way. As you do it more often and you sort of, you know your own boundaries and you know what to do. But the biggest thing is just need to believe in yourself, no matter what the people around you say. They might look very worried about you and probably they should be, but I know myself and I've learned just to be patient. Eventually you'll get through this. Sometimes it takes long. I mean, almost at this year's Mac, it almost took more than 24 hours to turn around. But it did. And when I did turn around, I was able to enjoy it much more than the rest of the ride.
So, what's interesting to me is, as you say, this is about your 10th 100-miler, am I right?
Yes, I've now completed 800 milers and I've tried 10. So yeah.
Okay, the one you were genuinely sick, I was there, I remember. That one doesn't really count as a fail. So effectively 1 DNF and 8. And in those 8, some really good ones, but quite a few that you went through a very similar kind of bonk recover situation as you went through at Mac now. And I think that's what's given you that quiet confidence to know you can bounce back from this. You can get up after feeling terrible and you can keep going. And you can not drink for 8, 9, 10 hours. And as long as you keep moving forward, at some point you're going to start that recovery.
Yes, I do think so. I mean, it does. I've now learned that you just hang in there, just keep on moving, just never give up. And fortunately for me, I mean, I'm able to sleep for an hour and it feels like sleeping 12 hours. When I get up there, I feel much better. But it also, over the 8 plus 100 milers, I've also learned I think patience is the key here. because once you start feeling better, you still need to hold back and just give it another hour or 2 hours and just wait till it settles. And once it settles, you're able to push through.
No, I think you touched on another very important point for me, and that is that we as the participants in these events we're a lot harder than people think. So aid station personnel who aren't themselves 100-mile runners, spectators who've never been through the experience, will look at somebody and think they're really broken and advise them to stop and go, no, you can't carry on because you don't look good, or you should stop. And yet so many of us have gone through exactly those moments of looking that bad and feeling that bad and still finished. I've personally been pulled from a race, this was a lot of years ago, pulled from a race because I'd been vomiting for an hour or so. And there is no ways I'd even slow down for that today. In what we know and how we race today, if you're throwing up, that's not a reason to stop. You throw up, you keep moving. It's not a reason to stop. But in the early part of your racing, something like that happens. You go, oh no, but I haven't been able to keep food down for the last 8 hours. It's like, so what? I've got enough body fat on me to keep burning for the next 2 weeks. This is not a crisis. But that comes with experience, and it comes with being out there and knowing what it feels like, rather than just having someone else tell you or reading in a book. Now, it's not an easy thing to keep going when the people around you are saying, oh, but you look so bad. And I think that's something I want to pass on to all the aid station personnel, to all the supporters and seconders. There is only one emotion you must have when somebody comes into an aid station, and that is a big smile on your face and lots of love. Pat them on the back, tell them they're wonderful, move them out of the aid station as quickly as you can. But don't let there be fear in your eyes when you see them, because that's not positive from a runner's point of view.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. But also, I also need to. I think I'm a very fortunate person that through every 100-mile race, I have a very good support team who supports me through all the events. I mean, not all the aid stations are supporter friendly, especially races like Longmore and Addo, where it's not possible just because of the sheer remoteness of those aid stations. But I've been very fortunate with my support team who's been supporting me through all these races, and they know me by now. And I also think as I've returned to these races and to one after the other, the race directors have also now started to know me and know what I'm capable of, and that also helps because well, there's nothing worse than a worried race director looking at you and you can see this guy is seriously worried about is this oak gonna make it or not. And I mean now and that also, I think that also helps when you do have when your race directors just don't pull you off the race because they know what you can do.
You're not a professional athlete. You are trying to hold down as much work as possible. You have family life. How do you fit your training and your life into one space, into 24 hours?
It's difficult, I must say. I think, especially on the training side, but that's one thing that I tried to maintain as to the best possible. I'm really very strict in my training. If I do have to go out for a 2-hour run on a Wednesday, then I'll try to do that. Sometimes it ends up being very late in the afternoon or evening still, or very early. Or I always try to fit in my runs, but sometimes it's just not possible. Sometimes I work 20-hour days because of the nature of my work. But I really think one needs to be disciplined in one's training regime. And I think to that extent, it's also helped me in doing these longer events because it does pay off. I think those hours when you go out for a training run, especially on a weekend, we have to go do a 5-6 hour run on a Saturday and you've worked through the whole of Friday and only got an hour sleep and you have to get up at 4 to be on time for the run at Magalies or wherever. You run on a tired mind, tired legs, tired everything. And I think that's obviously not sustainable, but it does help you. It does help me in my preparations for these 100-mile events, because then when you're completely broken during a race, you sort of almost feel you're used to it. And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. And your support system at home. I mean, obviously your family backs you both from a training point of view and making as much space for you as possible.
If it's not for my support system, my crew, not just my wife, but my whole extended family, if it's not for them, I wouldn't been able to do what I can do. This year has been pretty rough in terms of work and volume of work, but I've also already done three 100-milers for the year, which I don't know how I've been able to do that, but it's largely because of my support system. I've got the most wonderful support crew that anybody can ask for. And I think that makes a huge difference.
You're famous for that. I don't know why, but aren't those people your why, that crew that get so behind you and are so excited by the fact that you're taking on another one? Isn't that really where your why comes from?
I think so. I think it because of their support, and they get so excited about. And I mean, they know my wife normally talks about entering an entry for the next race before I even thought about it. So, I mean, that's just wonderful. But I also think a big part of the why is yeah, I mean, the last couple of years I've been suffered a lot, running wise, work wise. But just if I remember one day I went out for a run during the week, and it was out on the road, and I caught up with a road runner, and he asked me, "What are you training for?" And I said, "No, I want to try this 100-miler thing." And he obviously laughed, because I mean, knowing my comrade's reputation, and he said, "Well, if you can run 100 miles, anybody can." And that sort of stuck with me, I think, and it is true. Anyone can do things that that's unimaginable. Whether it's running 100 miles or reading a 1,000-page novel. I don't think I'll be able to do the novel bit, but we can do things that we think is virtually not possible, completely impossible. And I think that is also one of the reasons, or that's one of the whys, is to show people that don't let anybody tell you you can't do something. Because if you really want to do it, you can, no matter what. Just believe in yourself and you'll do it.
I agree with you 100%. So tell me this, from a recovery point of view, between these, as you say, you've run 300 milers now in a very short space of time. How do you recover, and how do you know you've recovered enough before you start training again?
Yeah, I normally, obviously, the first couple of days after a 100-miler, you sort of just catch up on sleep, and I do take off. There's always this excitement after a race, but there's also this, what do they call it, this downs or the blues after the race, and it's sort of mixed. But I generally take a week off, and generally know when I want to run again, and when I miss being out in the trails, then I know it's time to start training again. And it's been actually amazing how after 300 miles in a short space of time, one is able to recover much quicker. I mean, the first year I did a 100-mile race, I thought, how are these guys able to do this Amok story? It's just not possible. I mean, it takes you months to. And I also think, coming from a comrades background, we used to only train for comrades, and that was it. After comrades, you didn't pretty much do anything. And now you go and run 100 miles after 100-mile race, and it's not so bad. So I think it's a mind thing, but I know when the moment when I start thinking about the next race or running again, and it's been a week or so, then I know it's time to start training again. But I also think that's why guidance and mentorship also helps, because one can fall in the trap of doing too much too soon. And I think that's where coaching comes into play, because I mean, at the end of the day, you pretty much know what to do, but you need somebody else just to help you, guide you to say, okay, maybe take another day off, or
Yeah.
maybe change. Don't do a 10-hour run today. Maybe just consider 4 hours, and that I think that has also helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think because, so certainly I've seen from the coaching side, I've seen that everybody gets to snap back in their legs quite a few days before their brain is actually back with them properly. And I explain it from the point of view of, I think it's hormonal. I think that cortisol levels, adrenaline levels are still super high. And until those are properly settled, you shouldn't really be running, even though you're feeling like, oh, I'm antsy and I'm bouncy and I want to go. And it takes probably 10 days after a 100 miler before your brain is back and your body is kind of normalized to the point that you can actually go for a reasonable run. And then it should still be on the basis of, okay, but how do my legs feel? What was my heart rate versus what the effort felt like, and ease back into it. But definitely, I see with 100-mile trail races, getting back to training probably in half the time that the comrades runners do. Road is a very hard surface to run on, and it really beats the body up, and trail is way kinder. So you guys get back to running and training a lot sooner.
And I also think trail is much more interesting. I think what tires you so much about the road is because it's so boring.
Yeah, and having to mentally overcome that boredom. I know for me on a marathon, when I'm running a marathon, for instance, somewhere around about 33, 34 Ks, my brain's going, oh, we're bored, let's just go home. Like, I'm not tired. No, it's not that I'm not tired. I am tired. Obviously, I've just run 34 Ks, but I'm not tired to the point that I have to stop running. But the brain is just going, oh, I'm bored. Let's just go home now. Let's just finish this. Why are we doing this? So 100% get you on that point. Okay, and this is a good point, because your mindset has your sense of will, and you called it stubborn. I think the actual word is determined is a better word than stubborn. So you're a very determined person. But what other mindset tricks, tips do you have for getting through those dark moments?
Well, that's yeah. I think it was this year's Mac when I got to Mac Hut the second time, and I slept for almost 3 hours. And I caught up with Nikki Boyens, and she said to me, Walter looks very scary when his soul leaves his body. And it's almost like that. It's almost when one gets into a situation where it feels like you're outside your body and you just watch yourself slogging through. I think that it helps you definitely, because I think your biggest enemy, especially when things are not going well and you're suffering really badly, is your mind. Because your mind will tell you, I mean, that's one of your body's safety mechanisms, is to tell you to stop when things are going very bad. And I think it's the ability to just not necessarily ignore that, but take the calculated risks and just sort of ease your mind to say, you've been through this, you've done it a couple of times. I think you've thought. The first time we spoke, you said to me, I know how to suffer. And I know how to suffer, so we've been through that, so we'll just do it again. I think that is one bit portion of it, but it's also the fact that you just keep all you need to just tell yourself is just keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. You'll make it, no matter what, you'll make it. Because at the end of the day, the disappointment after the race for not making it, I think, is far worse than what you have to endure to actually finish. It's a very risky business, and there are situations where you are really sick. I mean, it happened to me last year at UTCT. I had the swine flu and I was terribly ill. But I kept on going, and at that point, people had to intervene. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have gone the way I planned it to do.
Yes.
But I do think you just need. I mean, you know your body, and I think I spend a lot of I spend a lot of time running alone in the mountains. I know myself. I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable talking to myself. I'm comfortable fighting with myself. And I think that also helps a lot, is knowing to be in that situation where you are alone and you are really suffering and fighting, but you know you can get through this.
You've described why we teach mindfulness, because it gives you that ability to step back from the crisis and to talk to yourself, almost, as you say, almost in a third person. You know, Walter, you've got this, or you're better than this, or you just have to keep going. And you literally, that's how you speak to yourself, right? Is that how you speak to yourself? Because that's the technique, right? I mean, it's a documented technique.
I do speak to myself a lot. Fortunately, I'm a lot alone, so that people don't look at me weird when I do so. But yeah, it's almost like you're watching a movie of yourself during this race. It's like you're watching a 100-mile trail race and the camera is on you, and you're sitting and watching how this guy is progressing. Yeah. And that's, I don't know, you get to a phase during these runs where you just go on autopilot and you just follow through, and you don't listen to that little voice telling you, this is tough, let's go home. You just shut it up and go on.
Yeah, and that place, it's almost like watching the movie. It's a place of curiosity. It's like, oh, what's going to happen next? Can you go up this hill? Can you get to the end? Just being curious about what you're capable of, and that's part of being in that pain cave. For me, it's just a space of curiosity. It's hurting and things are sore and you're unhappy, but there's also that sense of, oh, I wonder if I can deal with this. I wonder how much further I can go. I wonder if I can actually make it to the end, or, you know, beat the cutoff or whatever.
Sorry, I also think you've mentioned it, I think last year or so, is when we start these races is to see how the movie unfolds. And that's actually very interesting, because it never goes as planned. And it never goes as you envision it to be. I think the one runner told me the other day, I think the mathematics we put into our race plans is probably 10 times more sophisticated than the space shuttle launch or something like that. But at the end of the day, it never boils down to that. So it's the whole thing of how the movie unfolds, which is also intriguing, and it's fascinating how, I mean, at the end of the day, when you suffer up a hill, and for example, Mac, you suffer through that whole Mac valley, Mac forest, and you get on top of, just before Mac pulls on top of the mountain again, and you just see this amazing view in the earlier hours of the morning, and you just tell yourself, wow, you look at where you are. And that I think that also, I mean, that I think the opportunity we have and the things we see during these races are truly amazing, and that's what makes it worth it. I'll never forget this year's Addo, when we ran up on our way to the 80 halfway mark checkpoint, which is in the Karoo. All the smells of the Karoo just came alive, and it was just fascinating. I mean, I was suffering that then as well, but it just made it worth it. That almost deafening silence, together with all these pungent Karoo smells, it was just amazing. And I just stopped for a minute and I just said, wow, look at where you are, what you can do. You're such a privileged person. And it remains a privilege. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that.
And that sentiment, that privilege, that sense of gratitude. So many ultra runners come to that on their own. They don't need to be guided there, just because of the nature of what we do, right? I mean, you're out there, you are exposed physically by the elements, but also emotionally. You get stripped bare. There's no time for pretense anymore. The emotions are there and they're raw and they're right on the surface. And you have to be present with the environment. And that's exactly when you start, like you say, smell the rain coming. You can smell the Karoo. Because you are now back to what we were born for, right? Being in the wild. I mean, we've only been civilized for 4,000 or 5,000 years. We've been wild for 200,000 years. So there's a genetic calling there to be part of that environment, not separated from it. And I think For me, that's what trail racing does. And certainly ultra trail racing does. Gives us that opportunity to be back answering the call of the wild.
Definitely. It brings you back to earth. I mean, no matter who or what you are, it strips you of everything. And you just there as a bare person. And you're just part of nature. And it's amazing every time I do this.
What's next for you? What's the next goal? Personal goal, race?
Well, I set my mind on this Amuk thing. They call it the Amukulu now. So I would like to complete the Amukulu challenge this year. I've got
And
one
that's
more
100
race.
miles in a year.
Yeah, that's 400 miles in a year. I've got one left, so we'll see how that unfolds. I really want to do the original Amuk. So I've now completed Addo, Mac, Ultra Trail Drakensberg, and then the Karkloof is the final one of the original Amuk. So that's sort of my main goal, and then obviously I can't complete the Amakulu challenge and not be at Longmore at the end of the year. So that's also another one of the races, and then I'm still thinking about UTCT. I don't really know. Maybe not. There's a couple of scores to settle still with UTCT. It's not my favorite race, I must confess, but it also has its quirks and challenges. So probably UTCT as well. We'll see. But the main goal now is to survive Amakulu and survive Karkloof, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, good luck with that, Walter. I think it's been an impressive year so far. It's been a lot of fun working with you and watching you and racing with you as well. Watching you out there on the course. You're certainly good value for entertainment, I'll tell you that much.
Thank you for all your input. I really appreciate it.
We're going to wrap it up here. So this has been a talk with Walter, a man who's run through illness, lots of sleeping on races, overcome incredible things in his life, and he continues running and finishing 100 miles. You can never count Walter out. He might look dead, but man, this guy can finish races and finish strong usually. So if you see him out there, tap him for some advice on how to keep your mental strength going when the going gets tough.